0000. Rising tensions in the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean had already become the world's most dangerous military theater. U.S. carrier strike groups were conducting routine freedom of navigation operations near contested waters, while Chinese naval forces continued expanding their presence across the region. But on this day, something different appeared on American radar screens. 112, an unusual launch. Detected early warning satellites suddenly detected a high-energy launch from mainland China's eastern coastline. At first, analysts believed it was another routine missile test, but within seconds, trajectory data told a far more alarming story. The weapon wasn't traveling toward an open test zone. It was heading directly toward waters where a U.S. carrier strike group was operating. Inside command centers, alarms immediately sounded. This was no ordinary ballistic missile. 2:30, America realizes the threat. Pentagon analysts quickly identified the signature profile of a next-generation anti-carrier weapon, designed specifically to destroy moving naval targets at extreme range. Unlike traditional missiles, this system maneuvered mid-flight. Speed estimates climbed rapidly, Mach 5, Mach 7, possibly faster, meaning interception time would be measured in seconds. The message became clear. China was demonstrating it could strike America's most powerful naval asset, the aircraft carrier. 0355, Carrier Strike Group, goes to combat readiness. Aboard the U.S. carrier, crews shifted instantly into full defensive posture. Destroyers activated advanced radar tracking systems. Electronic warfare teams began countermeasures. Interceptor missiles were prepared for launch. Fighter jets already airborne were redirected to defensive patrol patterns. Every sailor understood the situation. If this was a live strike, thousands of lives were suddenly at risk. 5:20, the missile changes course. Then came the most shocking moment. The weapon adjusted its trajectory mid-flight, turning toward the exact operational zone of U.S. forces. This confirmed Washington's worst fear. China wasn't just testing range, it was testing carrier kill capability under real operational conditions. And now, American commanders had seconds to decide how to respond. 6:40, Washington faces a critical decision. Inside the Pentagon, senior military leaders watched the live tracking feed. Intercepting the weapon could escalate tensions instantly. Ignoring it could signal weakness. For the first time in years, U.S. naval dominance in the Pacific was being directly challenged in real time. Then authorization orders began moving down the chain of command, because America was about to respond. 7:05, Intercept authorization. Granted seconds before impact prediction, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command issued the order. Engage the incoming weapon. Aegis-equipped destroyers surrounding the carrier instantly locked onto the hypersonic threat. Fire control systems calculated hundreds of interception solutions every second. Then, vertical launch systems erupted. Multiple interceptor missiles blasted into the sky, leaving trails of fire across the Pacific horizon. The battle had officially begun. 8:20, the hypersonic chase. Tracking a maneuvering weapon traveling at hypersonic speed was nearly impossible. The missiles zigzagged aggressively, attempting to overwhelm American defenses. Radar operators fought to maintain lock as electronic warfare systems flooded the airspace with countersignals. For several tense moments, the incoming object disappeared from tracking screens. Silence filled command centers. 0935, Midair interception. Suddenly, sensors confirmed contact. A massive flash lit up the upper atmosphere. One interceptor successfully detonated close enough to disrupt the weapon's guidance system. Fragments scattered across the ocean far from the carrier group. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the situation was far from over, because Washington viewed the event as more than a test. It was a message. 10:50, America demonstrates power. Within minutes, U.S. forces shifted from defense to deterrence. Stealth bombers stationed across the Pacific were placed on high alert. Carrier-based fighters launched additional patrol waves. Attack submarines quietly repositioned closer to strategic zones. Long-range surveillance aircraft began monitoring Chinese naval movements in real time. The United States wanted one thing understood: carrier strike groups were not vulnerable targets. 12:15, electronic warfare, counterstrike. U.S. cyber and electronic warfare units initiated a powerful response. Signals intelligence platforms targeted tracking networks believed to support the missile test. Communication disruptions were detected across multiple monitoring systems. Without firing another shot, America demonstrated it could blind hostile targeting networks if necessary. Modern warfare had entered a new phase: dominance through technology. 1340, a global shockwaves news. of the near confrontation spread rapidly. Allied nations increased naval readiness. Regional air defenses moved to higher alert levels. Military analysts warned that hypersonic weapons were reshaping naval warfare forever. The balance of power in the Pacific suddenly felt less certain. 1500, the message sent. Hours later, U.S. carrier operations continued uninterrupted. Aircraft launched, patrol routes resumed. The fleet remained exactly where it had been. The signal to the world was unmistakable. America would defend its forces and respond instantly to emerging threats. But behind closed doors, strategists understood the deeper truth. The next confrontation might not be a test. And next time, there may be no warning. 1620, the strategic aftermath. Behind public statements of routine defensive action, something far bigger was unfolding. Inside secure briefing rooms, Pentagon wargaming teams began recalculating future Pacific conflict scenarios. Because this wasn't just about one missile, it was about proof of concept. China had demonstrated it could track, target, and pressure a moving carrier group in real-time conditions. And that changes military planning forever. For decades, aircraft carriers were considered nearly untouchable symbols of global power projection. Now the question was no longer if they could be targeted, but how often. 1740, the hypersonic arms race. Intensifies hypersonic weapons operate in a dangerous gray zone. Too fast for traditional missile defense, too maneuverable for predictable interception, too strategic to ignore. Both Washington and Beijing have been investing billions into next-generation systems. The real fear? Compression of decision time. When weapons travel at Mach 8 or Mach 10, commanders don't have hours, they have seconds, and seconds create the risk of miscalculation. One wrong radar interpretation, one delayed authorization, one technical malfunction could trigger a chain reaction no one intended. 1905, carrier warfare is evolving. Naval doctrine is now shifting. Future carrier groups may operate farther from hostile coastlines. Unmanned drones will likely expand defensive perimeters. Space-based tracking will become even more critical. The age of visible dominance is slowly giving way to invisible warfare, cyber, electronic suppression, and autonomous systems. The Pacific is no longer just a naval battlefield. It's a technological chessboard. 2030, the silent submarine factor. While headlines focused on the intercepted missile, few noticed what happened beneath the surface. Attack submarines from both sides increased patrol depth. Undersea cables, surveillance arrays, strategic choke points. The real strategic leverage in the Pacific often lies below the waves, unseen, undetected, and potentially decisive. Because in modern warfare, the side that controls information often controls the outcome. 2200, Allies take notice. Japan strengthened its missile defense posture. Australia accelerated defense coordination. Regional partners expanded joint naval exercises. The message was clear. The Indo-Pacific security architecture is being tested, and alliances are becoming more critical than ever. This single incident sent ripples through every capital connected to Pacific trade routes. 2330, deterrence or prelude? Was this a warning, a demonstration, or preparation? Military analysts remain divided. Some argue it was strategic signaling, a show of capability without intent to strike. Others warn that normalization of hypersonic brinkmanship increases the chance of accidental conflict, because when advanced weapons are routinely tested near operational forces, the margin for error shrinks. 2500, the bigger question. For decades, aircraft carriers symbolized unmatched power. Floating air bases, mobile command centers, billions of dollars of concentrated force. But the rise of hypersonic anti-ship weapons forces a difficult debate. Are carriers still the kings of the sea, or are they becoming high-value targets in a new era of warfare? The answer will define naval strategy for the next 50 years. 2630, final reflection. The missile never struck. The carrier never moved. No lives were lost, but something changed that day. A threshold was crossed. The Pacific is no longer just about presence. It's about reaction time, technology dominance, and strategic nerve. The next encounter may unfold even faster, and when seconds decide history, preparation is everything.